Hello and welcome back to another edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network on this Monday, May 19th. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Start of another week. It's another grind, but Memorial Day weekend coming up this weekend, so something to look forward to. Got a good show for you today. Gonna go over a lot of SEC talk. Gonna do conference primer, pretty much some of the key storylines, programs to kind of follow throughout the SEC and what's going to happen there in that conference, where it just means more. Going to talk also about the NFL college football, landscape, that kind of relationship. And is the NFL negatively impacting the college football playoff? Going to discuss why that might be the case, as well as get into some teams who I think they might outperform their win totals that are projected right now, looking at the odds given to us by Vegas books. Going to look at some of those programs that I think have a better shot to outperform where they're projected to be at right now, as well as stick around. We're going to talk, will two-way players be the future? Is this a new wave? Is this something we're going to see throughout college football now? It might be the case. But before I get into anything else, I just want to remind everybody, this show is all about you. We love hearing your comments, your questions, your insights, hot takes, whatever you got. We want to hear it. We want to make this show as interactive, as exciting as possible. Now, one easy way to do that is if you're on YouTube, you can use the super chat feature. How do you do that? All you have to do is to click the $ at the bottom of the chat box, type in your comment, question, message, hot take, whatever you got there, send that in. This guarantees that your message gets on the air. It's also just a great way to support our channel, support what we're trying to do here at GSMC. We couldn't do what we do without your ongoing support. And if super chat's not your thing, if you're not on YouTube, you can also go to gsmcpodcast.net to tip, donate, comment, question there on that website. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Now, let's talk some SEC ball. So, SEC, they kind of had a down year for their standards, right? The past 2 years, at the end of January, when the last game is played, when the national championship is being played for the college football season, SEC has not been there. They've been sitting this one out on the sidelines, and it's kind of a cause for concern for the conference that some may say rightfully trumps itself as the top football conference, the conference to beat. You want to go play great football, you go to the Southeastern Conference and go play ball down there. This hasn't been the case though. The past couple of years, it's been a down season or two for the SEC program, for the conference in general, for that kind of landscape. Last year's inaugural 12-team playoff obviously kind of underscored some of the league's admittedly rare, right? Some of the league's struggles though on the actual gridiron. 3 schools got left out of the field right at the end in Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, who are all kind of right there. 4 programs like Indiana, SMU, other programs not in the Southeastern Conference that they did get in over some of those SEC schools. And then Texas, the newbie, right? The guy that nobody really wanted in the SEC, they end up having all of the SEC's wins in the 12-team playoff. So it's becoming pretty apparent, right, that the transfer portal, NIL, they've kind of siphoned off how much overpowering success the SEC used to have, right? This was a conference where there was a clear dominance on the field. But some of the kind of NIL stuff, transfer portal, that's encouraged players to kind of move away from the SEC. However, those around the league, they're not sitting back. They're not waiting. They want to come back right up to the top again this year. Not 26, not in 27, in 2025. So, if anything, this offseason kind of shows that SEC teams are digging in to this new era, right? Title favorite of the conference, it's got to be the Texas Longhorns right now. So yes, this is the Arch Manning era. Let it begin. Let the Longhorn faithful scream out the Manning last name. This is their guy. And we're going to see how he does in his first full year as a starter there. For all of the outside hype that Manning last name brings, that's not all they have. This is a kid that's probably going to be really great as their starter, confident that they can handle it. Sark has a ton of confidence in Arch Manning's abilities, not only as a quarterback, but as a leader, to lead this Texas football program back to the promised land. And when you move off of quarterback, right, you still have a really great roster. Yes, they did lose a lot. They had double-digit draft picks the past 2 seasons, but they smartly plugged some of their few holes in the portal. They have added and stacked multiple classes of high-end talent coming out of high school. And those guys, they're ready to break out too. Some of those young bucks, some of those guys that have been chomping at the bit to get a chance, they might get it this year in Texas. So yes, they're still going to be young, right? They did lose a lot, but this is a program that's going to be the favorite, I think, for the SEC championship this year. Defense, they're going to be leaned on heavily. You still have stars, Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, some guys on that defensive line, defensive side of the ball that are really going to anchor this Texas program. And then you also look at some of their skill guys, Ryan Wingo, bringing in Emmett, and I'm blanking on his last name right now, Emmett Mosley V from Stanford at wide receiver. You have CJ Baxter coming back off of injury. This is a deep, talented Texas roster, and they have a couple tough road trips. That's probably the biggest obstacles in their schedule. You have to go to Ohio State, play them week 1. You have to go to Florida, play them in the Swamp, and you have a rematch between the hedges in Athens, Georgia, going there to play the Bulldogs. That's going to be a huge matchup for the future of the SEC, for kind of the outlook of the 25 season. Texas at Georgia, going to be a big-time matchup. Could potentially be an SEC championship preview. Right, so pretty modest slate at home too. Texas, definitely the team to beat this year. Then, elsewhere around the conference, you have that really deep crop of potential threats, right? The word I'm using, the key word, is potential here. You have Florida, you have South Carolina, you have LSU, who really reloaded, had one of the best transfer portal classes in the nation. Some sites had them 1. Most had them at least top 3, though. So this is a LSU team that was already talented, and they brought in a ton of guys, especially plug-and-play guys. When you look at guys like A.J. Halsey from Houston, gonna slot right in at starting safety there, a guy that was all Big 12 last year. LSU, that's a really interesting team to watch this year. Then you have Texas A&M, and Texas A&M really kind of seems like it's going to depend on Marcel Reed, on that quarterback position. Can he kind of live up to expectations? Can he grow into that role as a starting quarterback this year? That's going to be a big question mark for Texas A&M. But you have that second group there, where those 4 to 6 teams, maybe even throw Ole Miss in there, maybe throw Auburn, Tennessee in there, as potential programs that could make that jump, right? There's certainly enough talent on their roster. They have great coaching staffs around them. Most of those schools have brought in pieces to kind of supplement and help counterweight the losses that they had throughout the draft, throughout the portal, just in general. You have those 5 to 6 teams that any one of them could break into that top tier. Have they done enough to win more than 7-8 games, to maybe get 9, 10 wins? If one of those teams goes 10-2, are they a playoff team? That's a really intriguing storyline, is that middle to upper tier of the SEC this year. How is it going to shake out? Who's going to be kind of the 1A, right? You have your Texas, you have your Georgia, maybe you have Alabama up there in that top kind of 3, but then your 4 to 8 teams, your 5 to 9. What's going to happen there with the SEC? I think it's really interesting. Obviously, the top storyline. Can the SEC get back in? Can they win it all again this year? After 2 years of not even appearing in the national championship, they're chomping at the bit to get back to the national championship, to bring silverware back to the Southeastern Conference. Is that going to be the case this year? I mean, there's been jokes this year after SEC gets 14 teams into the March Madness tournament. Is the SEC now a basketball conference? That's something that has ruffled a lot of feathers too across programs in the South, is kind of that mindset, that point of thinking of maybe we're not at the top of the football pyramid anymore. That's going to be a big thing of trying to get back there. Can they kind of change that perspective, that point of view of, hey, they're kind of losing steam right now in the SEC? And this is going to make sense, but it kind of underscores the point that the SEC has not been what we're used to on the gridiron. Some of that can be added to kind of the depth of adding Oklahoma and Texas, right? And then sometimes, though, you just had to tune in on any random Saturday in 2024, 23 to see Georgia, Alabama, LSU, all struggling, all dropping a game they shouldn't. Alabama losing 24-3 to Oklahoma last year. Georgia having some interesting matchups, almost losing to Georgia Tech, almost lost a couple other games. They were kind of on the ropes. This wasn't what we've seen from, the traditional SEC dominance point of view. The Georgia Bulldogs lost as many games as they had in the prior 4 seasons combined last year in 2024. Obviously, losing the greatest coach of all time at Alabama in Nick Saban, that's going to affect that program. And they had a down year for their standards. They still won 9 games. That's a big thing here, is standards, expectations are a lot different than they are in other conferences around the country. I think another kind of under-the-radar storyline is what's going on with the quarterback play in the SEC. Over the past couple of years, SEC has produced multiple Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, right? Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow 2019. You go back, there's been guys in the conference that have won the Heisman Trophy at the quarterback position. But the drop-off last year in 24 was noticeable. No starter completed over 70% of their passes. No starter threw for over 30 touchdowns. And 4 different quarterbacks also threw for double-digit interceptions. So the quarterback play across the board has really kind of dropped off here. So obviously, while Arch Manning, he rightfully or not gets the most attention, gets the most hype coming into this year, there's still a lot of other quarterbacks that people around college football, around the SEC, are hoping can improve their play and kind of bring that level up of where SEC quarterback play kind of was looked at before. You have Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, threw for 4,000 yards last year. You have LaNorris Sellers, an elite dual-threat quarterback that's super exciting to watch. DJ Lagway at Florida, just brimming with potential. Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt, super exciting quarterback, kind of funky to watch, experienced guy, but fun, brings energy to that Vanderbilt program that desperately needed it. Can some of these guys step up this year and re-solidify the SEC as a place where there is really strong quarterback play? Oklahoma, Auburn, they both upgraded at the position. Gunnar Stockton coming in at Georgia. What's going to happen here with the SEC quarterbacks? How is that all going to shake out? This is a league that's very much in flux right now. You have a couple coaches on hot seat: Sam Pittman, Mark Stoops, Venables. Pretty much no job is safe in the SEC, it seems, from year to year. I think Kirby Smart has earned a pass at this point, but still kind of the point remains that you have to perform in this league. And it's going to be interesting to see kind of how it all shakes out this year. Who's going to be at the top? Who's going to be at the bottom? Who's going to falter? Who's going to go above and beyond expectations? Or who is going to underperform? That's going to be a big question mark here. I'm excited to see how it all shakes out, though. So right now, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk about some teams that I think are going to outperform some expectations, including one of the SEC teams that we mentioned earlier. But we're going to get on to all of that when we come back on the GSMC College Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. On this Monday, May 19th, just talked some SEC programs, gave a little bit of a conference primer preview for this upcoming year. Gonna switch gears. We're gonna talk a little bit now about some teams that I think are gonna outperform their win totals that are projected currently. But before we get into any of that, I want to remind everybody, this show is all about you. We love hearing your comments, your questions, your insights, whatever you got, we want to hear it. We want to make this show as fun, as interactive, as exciting as possible. One easy way to do that is if you're on YouTube, you can use the Super Chat feature. To use the Super Chat feature, all you have to do is click the dollar sign at the bottom of the chat box, type in your message there, send that in, and this guarantees that your message gets on the air, gets read live. It's also just a great way to support our channel and support what we're trying to do here at GSMC. We're so grateful to have all of your support here, and we love just giving you more sports content that you want to hear. Now, let's talk some teams that I think are going to outperform some expectations. So, one program I looked at, and I was really surprised that it was only at 7.5, was the BYU Cougars. So their win total in Vegas right now is set at 7.5 wins. I think this is an easy over. You look at what BYU did last year. You look at what Kalani Sitake has kind of built there in Utah, just throughout the course of his time as a head coach there, taking them from an independent, leading them into this new Big 12 era, and they had a really great season last year. We're in kind of contention throughout the regular season for that Big 12 championship. Kind of fell off at the end of the year, but this is a team, this is a program that's going to be coming back. They return their quarterback, Jake Retzlaff. That's a big win. Anytime you have an experienced quarterback coming back for another year in the system, that's always a bonus. And this is a guy that knows how to play, and he's going to have to improve across the board, but that's kind of the expectation, right, when you come in as a second-year starter. But they know that he's good enough, both with his arm and his legs, to pick up key first downs, can extend plays with his legs on the ground, a guy that gets them some big plays, moves the chains for the BYU program, and there's a lot of good talent around him at the skill positions, especially LJ Martin coming back at running back, wide receivers Chase Roberts, Parker Kingston are still there to give Jake Retzlaff weapons, and then you have a really big addition at the tight end position in Carson Ryan, transferring from Utah, coming over to the other side of the Holy War. That's going to be a big target for Jake Retzlaff, a guy that he can look at when he needs one of those key plays, when he needs a first down. Maybe he doesn't have to use it all with his legs. He can find his tight end, his safety blanket, his security option in Carson Ryan and get him the ball, make them move the chains, keep that BYU offense on the field. That's going to be a good unit. On defense, you have one of the best linebacker groups in the country coming back, led by Jack Helly and Isaiah Glasker. Those two guys there at linebacker give the BYU defense a lot of experience, a lot of high-quality potential for some big-time plays on defense. And then you look at their actual schedule, right? There are 6 games they're going to have a clear advantage in. They have Portland State, That should be a win. Stanford, I would be very surprised if they lost to Stanford. ECU, okay. Arizona, very winnable. Cincinnati, yep. And UCF. So, if they win all of those games, just the winnable ones, that's 6 wins right there. At that point, they only need 2 more wins in 6 games to beat that win total, to get over 8 wins in the season. And you do have to go to Boulder to play Colorado, but this is a team that they smashed in the Alamo Bowl, right? And a team that is replacing their starting quarterback in Shatter Sanders, replacing almost the irreplaceable Travis Hunter on both sides of the ball, and also losing most of their other receivers as well. So also a winnable game. Yes, you do have to go on the road, but I think they're a better program than Colorado this year. That game may be more of a toss-up than we think, but I think it's still winnable. So say they win that game too. At that point, there's 7 wins in the season. Then you have home games against West Virginia, TCU, Utah. And then you go to Ames, Iowa to play the Cyclones of Iowa State. And you play Texas Tech in Lubbock. Okay. Texas Tech, Iowa State. Those are some tough matchups. I would be kind of surprised if they won both of those games. And then you have West Virginia, TCU, Utah at home. Again, would be surprised if they win both of those, or all 3 of those games. I think they probably lose 2 of those 5 total. But still, that's a 10-win season for BYU. I think they vastly are going to outperform this 7.5 win total. I would be surprised, though, if they do come in under. I just think they're too well coached. They have a manageable enough schedule to easily surpass that 7.5 win margin, that mark. Another team that I was kind of surprised that their total was this low is the Florida Gators. Now, Florida's win total is currently set at 6.5 wins on the season. And I can see why. I'll say that. Their schedule, again, like last year, is absolutely brutal. Features 8 teams that are probably going to be ranked at some point throughout the 2025 season, including both Texas and Georgia. You also have to play a Miami team that they blasted them in the swamp last year. Miami really kind of put the spanking on them. But Miami, they lose Carson Beck. If I was a Gators fan, I would be optimistic about that one. Playing Miami, I think they're a better program, a better talented team this year. And this seems like a really resilient Florida Gator football program. As rough as things kind of got last season at one point, Billy Napier never lost that locker room. He never lost that team. He always had his voice was always there. The guys never tuned him out, and they bounced back. The players played hard for him. They lost in overtime at Tennessee. They were competitive against Georgia, despite having to play a third-string quarterback during that time. And when DJ Lagway came back in the lineup, they beat LSU. They beat Ole Miss at home, who Ole Miss was slotted for the College Football Playoff at that time. They smoked Florida State on the road, and then they beat Tulane in their bowl game. So they came back, had a really nice stretch of wins to end that season, have some forward momentum. And obviously, there's a little bit of a question mark right now around DJ Lagway. Just he had been out all spring. Sounds like he's ready to go, though. He's back to throwing the football. And besides him, there's a lot of talent on this team. Defensively, Tyreek Sapp, one of the best guys on that D-line in college football. A guy that rival coaches have immense respect for, that they game plan around. A big piece of that Florida defense. You have Caleb Bakes right next to him. Their big D tackle. 7 sacks last year. Another kind of headache for opposing coaches to game plan around. Then you have a seasoned offensive line as well, kind of anchored by their center, Jake Slaughter. This is a team, a program that's really exciting. You have a wide receiver room that's a little bit kind of in flux, but some big-time guys there that are coming in. They had a really big freshman wide receiver commit that showed out in the spring game this year. So this is a low win total, right? 6.5 wins. I think they pass it, though. I am a believer in this Florida team. I think they have a lot more talent than people kind of realize. I think last year's schedule kind of muddied the waters on how good Florida actually was last year. All their losses were to top 25 programs, and I think it's fair to expect some inconsistency from Florida this year. They're not going to win all of these games against this slate. I think, though, this group is good enough to win 8 or 9 games at least. Compete, you maybe upset Texas or Georgia, you pull out a really big win. I think that this Florida program can do that this year. I'm high on them. I think they're a lot more talented than they get credit for, and they're more well coached than people give Billy Napier the credit for. But 6.5, it seems low for me. I think Florida goes over. Duke. Now Duke, their win total set at 5.5 wins this year, and that one really baffled me. Right, this is a program that went 9-4 last season. They won 9 games, and you bring in Darian Mensah at quarterback from Tulane, a guy that's a clear upgrade over Malik Murphy and whoever else they had playing last year. A guy that arrives with a track record of efficiency, of production. Last year in 2024, led Tulane to 9 wins, AAC Conference Championship appearance, and he topped the conference with his almost 67% completion percentage, 9.5 yards per pass attempt, 23 total touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. A guy that has the experience, has the decision-making skills to give Duke kind of a steady presence at quarterback at the most important position on the field. He's a guy his performance has already kind of garnered national attention, and I think he's going to do really well at Duke under Manny Diaz. This upcoming season kind of gives them an opportunity to build on the foundation that they started last year. I don't know if 5.5 wins seems really low for me. I think their combo of kind of stability in coaching as well as that upgrade in Darian Mensah is going to help them. Then you look at the defense. Their defense returned 6 starters from a group that was top 5 nationally in sacks per game, tackles for loss per game, and fumbles recovered last season. So that's a really impressive, pressure-filled front 7 that is going to be still there and still a really solid defense. You have Quishon Brown, who showed up huge in the spring game, had about 6 catches for almost 150 yards, going to be that clear-cut number 1 option, and really showcase chemistry with Darian Mensah, which is something not to be overlooked. But that wide receiver room, that unit, the defense, the addition of Darian Mensah, the presence of Manny Diaz, I think all of those factors will help them. So you do have to go to Clemson, to Syracuse, to Tulane, and to North Carolina. Then you have Georgia Tech and Illinois at home. But I think even if they still have a losing record in those games, I think they still go over 6 wins. I think that's really low for them this year. I see this as more of an 8-9 win Duke team. I think they vastly go over that 5.5 mark, though, and I would not be surprised to see them competing in the ACC this upcoming year. Now, we're going to take another short break on the show. When we come back, we're going to talk about the NFL. Is it a threat to college football playoff scheduling? We're going to discuss it when we come back on the GSMC College Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network on this Monday, May 19th. Just talked a little bit about some teams I think they're going to outperform expectations, maybe get into the college football playoff if everything kind of breaks right for them this upcoming year. And speaking of the college football playoff, I want to talk about, is the NFL a threat to college football playoff scheduling, right? Now, there's a ton of issues around the college football playoff schedule format right now. Just think about it. They don't know what weekends to do. Is it still going to be 12? Is it going to go to 14? Is it going to go to 16? Will there be automatic bids for conferences? Will the SEC get a certain number of teams? Will the Big Ten get a certain number of teams? Will there be automatic buys for conference champions like there were this year? Will there be reseeding? All of these issues, they're all being discussed right now. They're all kind of in the ether, in the conversation, but we're missing the big picture here. We're kind of slogging through everything. There's the big shield in the room, the NFL shield. So, while college football players, commissioners, officials, they're all discussing this and trying to go through straight C's, first round buys, campus sites, who's going to host, what will happen to this field. They're ignoring the biggest threat, the NFL. When you look at the NFL's TV schedule, their structure, it's pretty much in direct competition with the college football playoff, with the CFP kind of taking more and more in December now. It means decreased ratings. It means decreased growth for a sport that's trying to build a completely brand new postseason playoff format in college football. You look at this season alone, right? There's matchups between the Eagles and the Washington Commanders and the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. Those two matchups are both on the same Saturday as first round college football playoff games. So, no matter how important, no matter how intriguing these first round matchups are, it doesn't matter. They're going to be dwarfed by the NFL, by those December critical football games in which there's 2 or 3 weeks left in the regular season of the NFL. That's really crunch time. When you look at a matchup like the Eagles Commanders, that could very much decide the fate of the NFC East, decide the division champion there. Same thing with the Packers and the Bears. I'm not super high on the Bears this year, but there's very much a world where that's basically a playoff matchup at that time for the NFC North, right? That Packers-Bears matchup. So, it doesn't matter if there's college football on then. This is still a sport that is dominated by professional football. NFL is the key here. That's America's game now at this point, basically. It's the most popular, most watched sport in America. It's going to always be the NFL. You look at last year's 3 games in the same window as NFL games. The 2 matchups on Saturday that went up in direct competition with the college football playoff was the Baltimore Ravens facing the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Kansas City Chiefs facing off against the Houston Texans. And those 2 matchups respectively, the Steelers-Ravens drew 15.4 million viewers to that football game. And the Chiefs-Texans game drew 15.5 million viewers on CBS for that particular NFL matchup. And then if you look at the Saturday afternoon first-round matchups for the college football playoff of last year, Texas, Clemson, those games were on TNT, TBS, True TV. So Texas, Clemson, that was 8.6 million viewers. And Penn State, SMU had 6.4 million viewers. So then the 2 evening games, though, if you look at, had no direct competition from the NFL. Ohio State beat Tennessee with 14.3 million people viewing, and Notre Dame beat Indiana with 13.4 million people viewing. That's a difference of 5 million people compared on the light side, 5 million for a difference of competing with the NFL directly versus not. And this is something that couldn't be avoided, right? Florida State Athletic Director Mike Alford, he kind of said that my hope is there's ways around it. Well, here's the thing. Hope isn't a plan, right? But leverage is. If you think about it, college football has a ton of leverage against the NFL. College football, it's basically the free minor league system for the NFL. If the NFL kind of wants to keep benefiting from that free system, it's time for them to start treating college football as a legit partner and not kind of like gum on the bottom of their shoe. There's a time not that long ago when college football decided, hey, we want to play on Thursday nights. We think it'd be unique, it'd be fun, it'd be a good way to bring eyeballs to our product, kind of showcase what we're trying to do here in college football and growing the game, growing the exposure that we get from the sport. Sure enough, NFL goes and sees that Thursday night success. Oh, hey, football on Thursday might be a good idea. They see that from the college football landscape and go, yeah, we're going to start doing games on Thursday now. You look at what's kind of happened now with Thursday night football. NFL, Thursday night football has pretty much overtaken Monday night football almost as kind of that second big week of football for the NFL. And you look at the TV rights for the Thursday night games. 2 years ago, the NFL sold the rights to Thursday night football to Amazon, and they get $8 billion annually. Not over 10 years. They get $1 billion annually from that Thursday night contract with Amazon just for that season. That's a bunch of lost revenue for college football. And this is a sport that's been searching for cash streams while kind of dealing with, revenue sharing. Is this going to be something that's going to happen? And by proxy, this means revenue lost for other college sports. It means dealing with potentially losing Olympic sports programs across universities nationwide. It means because this cash that supports these programs, it's now going to be used to pay players in revenue sports and revenue sharing sports and football and basketball, that kind of thing. That's a lot of money and revenue lost out on by college football. So if you look at it, NFL, they're basically getting free player development, free scouting from college football. If college football was to kind of go, hey, we don't want to do this anymore. You have to give us something, or we're not going to give you any access to our film, our practices, our players, nothing. You're not going to get anything, which in theory, college football can do. The NCAA or whoever is going to be kind of overarching, be that organization responsible for college football in the next 5-10 years, they can go to the NFL and say, hey, you haven't given us anything. In order for us to keep sending you our players, for you to keep getting information on everybody in our college football organization, you need to give us something. I think it's kind of odd too that when you look at the past 4 years, college football has been swimming in this paradigm of which direction to go in, what are we going to do, and the NFL has been very, very quiet throughout the whole time. Haven't reached out and offered support. Haven't reached out to say, hey, maybe we can help you out a little bit. Nope, nothing of that nature has happened. So, if you're college football, why not go to the NFL and say, hey, we're not going to give you anything. You're not going to get any information on our players. You're not going to get any access to practices, to film, to player interviews, anything. You're not going to get any of it unless you give us this weekend, this Saturday, for our games, for our playoff games. I don't care. That's what we want. If you can strong arm the NFL and go, hey, we're not going to give you anything, because mind you, this is all free. right? College football is essentially a minor league for the NFL. All their players come from there for the most part. All of the information that the NFL has about these guys is from this entire college football landscape. So if the NCAA, College Football Playoff Board of Directors, whoever's kind of running college football at that point, if they send a letter to all 32 NFL teams, to the actual NFL organization, if they have kind of a commissioner that can interact with Roger Goodell, why not send a letter and go, hey, no more practice, no more game access, no more tape, no more access to players, coaches, anybody connected with college football until you give us what we want. In the long run, it makes sense. You get more ratings for college football. You don't lose out on that TV money. You don't lose out on that potential growth of revenue, of exposure. There's a lot going on here. Why not kind of force the NFL into helping you if you're college football? It's something that is very possible, and it's something that they should really consider trying to do for the future of the sport. So now we're going to take another short break on the show. When we come back, I want to touch on, are we going to see more two-way players? Is this a trend that could be starting to blossom or falter? We're going to dive into all that when we come back on the GSMC College Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network on this Monday, May 19th. Just talked about NFL. Are they a threat to college football? Certainly seems like they may be. But one guy who just got drafted into the NFL from college football is Travis Hunter, a guy that kind of reinvigorated the idea of being a true two-way football player. Made a huge impact for Colorado, both on the offensive side of the ball at wide receiver, as well as on defense, as cornerback, as their kind of lockdown guy, playing the vast majority of their snaps. This is something that we haven't really seen in college football in a long time. There's been blips and kind of stretches of one or two guys, right? You think of the Desmond Howards of past, the Charles Woodsons, the Jabril Peppers, guys that played a little bit, but they didn't do it full time both ways of the ball. That's just kind of not how it was. But Travis Hunter comes along and blows that out of the water, right? He kind of rewrites what it means to be a true two-way football player. And I'm wondering, is this something that we might start to see more and more throughout the college football landscape? So a guy that just committed this weekend to the Texas Longhorns program, is Jermaine Bishop. So now Jermaine Bishop, number 1 ranked athlete in the 2026 cycle from Willis, Texas, a guy that got strong interest across the board. But this is a kid that's one of the fastest risers of this class, was included in 24/7's initial groupings of 5-star prospects, and a guy that's the number 25 player in the country, number 3 player in Texas, not super big, only 5'11", 155, but a dude that's physical gifts just jump off the board. One of the best pure football players in the country. If you're looking at impact-wise, this is a guy that can impact you on both sides of the ball. He's either a class-leading wide receiver or he's a class-leading defensive back in most kind of scouts' eyes right now. And Gabe Brooks, who's a scouting analyst for 24/7, he said that this is a guy that is likely the best two-way prospect we've seen since Travis Hunter. A guy that is pretty reminiscent of kind of a Jordan Addison type on wideout. And then kind of Travis Hunter like in terms of being a cornerback, being a true pure athlete. One of the most fascinating players to watch, kind of where he ends up in terms of his future home of college football on the positional side of the ball, right? Is he going to be a wide receiver? Is he going to be a defensive back? Or is he going to be both? In the past 2 years, it's a kid that's made a name for himself as one of the best wide receivers in Texas history. Nearly 3,000 yards, 35 receiving touchdowns. But he might have more upside on the defensive side of the ball as a cornerback prospect long-term wise. Bishop, though, himself, Jermaine Bishop, said, being able to watch Travis Hunter do that at the college level was great for me. Now that people know that it's possible to do it, they know it can be done at that level. It was an eye-opening experience for the rest of the world. So Jermaine Bishop himself, probably when he was growing up, 8th grade, freshman year, was like, I'm going to have to pick at some point. Then you go see Travis Hunter win the Heisman and become the second overall player drafted in the NFL draft after playing 2 positions. And you see that, you go, maybe I can do that too. I think that's something that's very possible. Getting the chances, though, at Texas, that's going to be tough for him. Texas, obviously, coming in, they're stacked at wideout. They have a really great defensive back room. So getting those chances on both sides of the ball, it's going to be tough. Are you going to have to go to maybe a lower caliber program where obviously Colorado kind of had the opportunity, gave that to Travis Hunter, where he could play on both sides of the ball just because they didn't have enough depth at either wideout or cornerback to kind of say, hey, you're only going to play wide receiver or you're only going to play cornerback. They didn't have that. Does Texas have that? Does it really matter? Is that even going to kind of affect the standing of Jermaine Bishop, affect where he maybe ends up? Another guy to look at, Dallas Golden, coming in to Notre Dame this year, a guy that didn't early enroll. He's going to be there in the summer. But a guy that also, he wants to play both ways. When he's asked what position he plays or what he wants to play, he says, I want to play wide receiver and cornerback. The guy's got a stronger preference for jersey numbers than he does for the position that he plays on the college football field. It's pretty kind of common for freshmen that are two ways, right? And this is something to be said that there are a lot of two-way players in high school football. It's just you don't really ever see them get to college and still play or practice at 2 positions. You very much in the first couple weeks go, hey, you're going to be a cornerback, you're going to be a wide receiver, or on the line, hey, you're playing offensive guard, or you're playing defensive end, right? That's just kind of how it goes. But he doesn't really care. Dallas Golden said, yeah, I do want to play early. I do want to try to get on the field, but I want to play both. I want to play wide receiver and I want to play cornerback. And this is a kid that, as a junior, when Berkeley Prep in Florida, when they won their state championship, he ran for 1,500 yards, 19 touchdowns. He had 32 catches for 400 yards, another 5 receiving scores. And then on defense, had 5 interceptions, also returned kicks and punts. And he kind of limited his senior year, but just that ability of playing both ways on a very high level, championship contending Florida football team, that's a big bonus. And this is a kid that already has a defensive backs trainer, sometimes gets wide receiver workout via Nelson Aguilar, the former 10-year NFL pro, who went to his high school, so he works out with him sometimes. So he's still getting work on both ends of the ball. And this is something I think that we're going to continue to see. As a freshman, he tackled Arch Manning, and he covered Jeremiah Smith on defense. And then, as a sophomore, played wildcat quarterback when needed. Are we going to see more of these guys trying to play both sides of the ball? Notre Dame told Dallas Golden, hey, we want you to try it out. Go for it. You can try out both sides of the ball. They just want him to get him on the field. This is something we're going to see more teams, more programs be open to it. Then another kid I'm looking at is Joey O'Brien. Joey O'Brien, from LaSalle, out of Philly, playing in the Catholic League there. A kid, though, that's 6'5", 190, playing wide receiver and defensive back. And a guy that was the best player in the state, was the MVP of the Catholic League last year, which, if you ever want to look up some great football, Philadelphia Catholic League high school football is some of the best in the country. Abdul Carter, Marvin Harrison, guys that both came out of that league. Abdul Carter was a guy that went to LaSalle, where Joey O'Brien goes, and O'Brien at this point projects to be better than both those guys. This is a guy that Brett Gordon, the LaSalle head coach, who has been there for a long time, he said, "This is the best kid I've ever had play for me." A kid that was able to impact both sides of the ball, caught 70 passes for 1,000 yards last year and 12 touchdowns, and then made 36 tackles, broke up 13 passes on defense, and had an interception. A guy that is elite on both sides of the ball. Are we going to start to see this happen more and more and more, where there's kids that they're playing on both sides, but they want to play both sides in college too? Our program's going to be kind of accepting of this. Are they going to say, hey, look at what Travis Hunter did. Could you maybe do something similar for us? I think it's very possible. I think kids also seeing Travis Hunter do that, especially when you're 15, when you're really great at two positions. You see a guy that's only a couple years older than you go win the Heisman, go be a high draft pick in the NFL. You go, hey, I can do this too. I can be this kind of guy. I can make that impact on both sides of the field. I want to change the game of football. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some of these two-way recruits coming out of high school being really prominent and trying to decide, I don't want to focus on one position. I want to try to do both. I want to do both and see how it goes. I think it's a trend that we might not see play out on the field for a couple of years, but especially in recruiting, especially in terms of these young kids coming in, I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing kids like Joey Bryan, like Dallas Golden, getting works on both sides of the ball, getting reps on both sides, just in terms of trying to help them be the best football player they can be. I think it's very possible. I think it's something to look out for in the next couple of years, is the rise of the two-way players. Now, we're going to take our last break of the show. When we come back, we're going to go for full circle, and we're going to start with my SEC program rankings, where I have everybody there. But we're going to come back, and we're going to discuss that on the GSMC College Football Podcast. Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Gonna finish off our show today where we started, by talking about the SEC. I know it's everybody's favorite and least favorite conference, but we're gonna start with my program power rankings. We're gonna start at the bottom, work our way up like normal, and on the bottom, I think this year it's got to be the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Had a really rough 2024 season, and I think it's going to be another rough year for young coach Jeff Lebby, kind of stepping into that program. This has been a Bulldogs program that has kind of been in shambles since the untimely death of head coach Mike Leach a few years ago. Had Zach Arnett as the interim coach there. He coached for a year, was fired. Bring in Jeff Lebby last year. And this is a program that's still kind of just in flux right now. They left the transfer portal windows with a big black eye. Lost a good chunk of talent. They lost 2 of their top 3 receivers in Kevin Coleman Jr. and Mario Craver. They lost 3 offensive linemen that ended up signing with Power 4 schools. Also lost cornerback Bryce Pollock, who led them last year with 7 pass deflections in 2024. So, just adding on to everything that they kind of already have struggled with. In terms of talent, the Bulldogs haven't really been up there in the past few years, and they've been facing a number of different issues. I think this is probably going to continue this year. I'd be pretty surprised to see them win a bowl game. I don't know. I don't think they have it this year. I don't think they have enough talent across the board. You also lose a guy in Michael Van Buren, who was pretty much a quarterback of the future. He transfers to LSU to back up Garrett Nussmeier. So that's a big loss there. A guy that could have been their starter for 2-3 seasons, yet he ends up leaving, going to another SEC school, and in a place where he's now a backup quarterback instead. So just kind of throwing salt on the wound there. Mississippi State, though, I think they're going to be in for another rough year. This is going to be a tough one for Jeff Lebby. Hopefully he gets another year at least just to kind of help turn things around. But this is a multi-year rebuild for Mississippi State. I think they're going to be back at the bottom of the rankings this year. Now, 15. As much as I don't like this, I think it's going to be Kentucky again. And I'll say, I'm a big believer in Mark Stoops. I think what he's done in Lexington has been nothing short of incredible, kind of reinvigorating, bringing that Kentucky football program back to life since he's been the head coach there. But this is going to be a tough campaign for them. Every another year, another transfer quarterback. This year, it's Zach Calzada, 7th-year college football player, a guy that did have a nice year at the FCS level with Incarnate Word, but if you look at his previous experience, especially his previous experience in the SEC with Texas A&M, this is not a guy that's going to excite a lot of Wildcat fans. I think this is a pivotal year for Mark Stoops as well. They went 4-8 last year. Seems like any goodwill he's kind of built up during his time in Lexington has quickly faded. The timer's on right now for Kentucky. And this is a program that had a couple nice wins last year, had a big upset against Ole Miss, but pretty much across the board really did not meet expectations. Will they be able to this year? The expectations are not super high. I think it's going to be another tough year, though. They don't have a ton of talent across the board. They have a tough schedule. We'll see. But I think they're going to be hovering probably right around bowl eligibility. They could be higher than my next team on the list, who is Arkansas. Now, at the minimum, Arkansas should have a really fun rushing attack with Taylon Green at quarterback, Braylon Russell at running back. Braylon Russell, kind of that big-bodied type of running back that is going to really excel under old offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino coming back to Arkansas. That's one of the craziest storylines, too, in the SEC this year. And then on defense, Arkansas, they really kind of took a nosedive last year, especially against the pass. Just really struggled against passing offenses last year. And it doesn't look like they really did enough to kind of vastly improve the situation on that side of the ball. So, while I think the offense is going to be better, I think Taylon Green and Braylon Russell kind of combined and have a really great rushing offense for Arkansas. I just don't know if that's enough for the Razorbacks this year. Sam Pittman, very much on the hot seat. And if he's fired mid-season, I think the funniest storyline would be Bobby Petrino taking back over at Arkansas. It's something very possible. I would not be surprised to see it. I don't know. Sam Pittman, though, you better watch out. Your new offensive coordinator, he might be coming for you. But Arkansas, I think, though, when you look across the board, this is going to be a tough year for them. I just don't know if their defense, if they have enough to kind of really make any noise this year in the conference. Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt's 13. I think they're slightly ahead of the kind of bottom tier and really surprised everybody last year. Going bowl eligible, finishing with 7 wins on the season. Clark Lee does not get nearly enough credit for the job that he's done at Vanderbilt. I mean, when you think about it, Vanderbilt is by far the hardest place in the SEC to win. Private school, the academic standards there, the lack of financial resources that pretty much every other school in their conference has, there's just not a lot there. There's not a lot to work with. And if he's just the first Vanderbilt coach since James Franklin to win a bowl game, only 5 wins away from matching Derek Mason's SEC win total in 7 years as the head coach for the Commodores. 7 years. So if he wins 5 SEC games this year, he'll have done it in 3 or 4 less years. They do have a brutal schedule this year. So making it back to a bowl it's going to be a big ask for them. But you have Diego Pavia coming back, dynamic quarterback, won out his JUCO lawsuit, so he's got another year of eligibility. Had that crazy upset against Alabama last year to kind of ride that coattail. I don't know. I would love it if Vanderbilt gets bowl eligible again. I don't know if I see it happening, though, but I think they're a little bit better than Kentucky, than Arkansas, than Mississippi State this upcoming year. Now, Oklahoma, I had really kind of struggled where to put them. I have them 12th. If you look at ESPN has them in their top 25, I think that's asinine right now. They have too much to prove at this point. The pressure's really on Brent Venables. He made a bunch of changes in the offseason after they kind of got bullied and pushed around in the SEC last season. He's going to take over defensive play calling responsibilities, brings in new OC Ben Arbuckle, who also brings in his quarterback in John Mateer, who really had a great year at Washington State. Ben Arbuckle, kind of seen as this young, up-and-coming quarterback whisperer type of vibe, only 29 years old, a guy that's produced some of the nation's best passing offenses in Western Kentucky as well as at Washington State. So, could the offense improve? It's certainly very possible. You also bring in Jaden Ott. You bring in Jay McCullough on that offense. McCullough to kind of stabilize the offensive line. Jaden Ott gives them a really dynamic running back to pair with John Mateer. But I just don't know, have they done enough to fortify the trenches? That's where they really had issues last year. They kind of got pushed around. The other SEC programs were bigger, stronger, faster than them, and they just got bullied. Have they done enough to offset that? Is this offense going to carry them? I have serious questions about it. I think they're going to kind of struggle again this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see them as a 7 or 8 win team. But, hey, go prove me wrong, John Mateer. Go prove me wrong, Ben Arbuckle. I'd love to see it. I want to see a dynamic offense down there in Soonerville at Oklahoma. And then we're going to finish off today by talking about Missouri. Missouri, it's a new era. Brady Cook's gone. Luther Burden's gone. Off to the NFL. Those two, they've combined for 20 wins over the past 2 seasons. Eli Drinkwitz still there as their head coach, though. A guy that really gets the most out of his players. They're going to be intriguing this year, though. They bring in Penn State transfer Bo Pribula to be their quarterback. Bo, kind of a fun guy, a gadget quarterback that Penn State used throughout last season in different sub-packages, a guy that's a really exciting rusher at the quarterback position, but completely unproven as a starter. We have no clue what he's going to look like when he actually is given the reins of an offense. We're not sure what that's going to look like under Bo Pribula. It's going to be interesting, though. They also bring in Amon Hardy, freshman All-American from Louisiana Monroe at running back. Should be able to take some of the pressure off of that passing game, of the inexperience of Bo Pribula. And then watch out for Marquise Davis. I think he's another guy, a hybrid. He's going to play running back for them, but a 4-star guy from Ohio that really was dynamic in high school. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets playing time too. I think Missouri is going to be punchy. I don't know if they win more than 7 to 8 games, but I think they're going to be punchy. I think they're going to win a couple upsets that people do not have them winning. They're going to be an interesting team, though. They're definitely not going to win 10 games this year. I think it's probably a 7-8 win season at most. But they're going to have a fighter's chance in most of these matchups, and they're going to be an interesting team to watch at the very least. So with that, we are going to end our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Please remember to subscribe, like, follow the channel. And if you want for more even sports updates, sports content, you can go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok for more of that. We want to bring you as much sport content as we can. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to